Hello everyone, Minkey here with the next episode of deck profiles, this one being on my level 1 restriction deck. Now before I get started, I just want to mention that this is actually the last sort of like planned one I've got at the moment, the last one I've really got planned, because I can't recall if I said this before, but I have 3 Armitar decks which I just got done, that I just had that uploaded last week. And then this is the 4th restriction deck, and I've been alternating between them, so there's something different every week. This time, but now, this being last restriction deck, at least the restricted version of the restricted decks, I've got, I'm done with them, so there's no more alternating between them. So I've got to decide on some more decks to pick, so I'm gonna look into doing that. I might do a poll or something. I'm not quite sure. I guess we'll see in a bit, but I might not get one out next week just because I've got to decide on the deck profiles and decide how I'm gonna handle them or not. Don't be too surprised if I end up missing one next week, but at the same time I'm going to try and get one out for next week anyway. I'm not sure what yet, but I'm sure we'll see. I've got one idea at the moment, but I don't want to spoil it just yet, so I want you to look forward to it, so Alright, let's get started with today's deck then. This is the restricted version of the Lv1 deck, and our boss monster is Mystic Piper. Yeah, a level 1 monster. It's a little shocking at first, if you will, maybe, but you remember that, this is a level 1 deck, so it's kind of given anyway. This is the only boss monster of the deck, and this guy says you contribute this card to draw and reveal 1 card. If that card is level 1 monster, draw 1 more card. The effect of Mystic Piper can only be used once per turn. So, not really a boss monster of anything, if anything, it's just more draw power, So, if anything, he's just another draw card, he's not even like a monster, he's not got any attack and defense, and he attributes himself just for his whole effect. So, not the best kind of boss monster, but the reason why I put him as the boss monster in this deck is because it helps remind me that this is a level 1 deck, because I always put, like I said before, I always put the boss monster at the front of the deck, so that I can look at it and think, oh right, that's the level 1 deck, or that's the Hammond deck, or whatever, that kind of thing. So that's why I always put them up at the beginning, so I can look at it and think, okay, that's that deck, without having to go through it. So that's more so why Mystic Piper is the boss of this deck. Not because he's powerful or because he's got some great effects or anything, but simply because I know this is a level 1 restricted deck, because this guy only works with level 1 monsters. So, obviously he works with monsters like Darklon, who are level 1s anyway, and I mentioned before how Darklon's technically not level 1 in the sense that he does increase his own level. So he might have gone into a different one of these level 1 decks, but he would still work with Darklon still. Not that he would be in this deck, but Alright, that was the boss monster. Now for the effect monsters, because I do not have any normal monsters in this deck. The first one is Acorno. During your main phase, you can send 1 Pinecono from your hand to the graveyard and special summon this card from your hand. So, he's a nice level 1 monster. He basically gets 2 special summons off of having him and another card in your hand, which I do have that card, we'll get to him later. I've got these alphabetical order, so they're not really, they're not really, together. I should have probably put them together for this, but you'll see them in a bit, so if anything, it's, it is what it is. Next we have 3 copies of Battle Fader. When the opponent's monster declares an attack, you can smash summon this card from your hand and end the battle phase. If summoned this way, banish it when it leaves the field. So it's a sort of a hand trap, more like a hand spell, I think. And it just sort of like blocks the attack and ends the battle phase for a turn. So it's really nice. Next up, we have 2 copies of Big One Warrior, which is a really cool card. You know, he's during your main phase, you can send one level 1 monster, except this card from your hand to the graveyard to special this card from your hand. So it's a really nice card. He obviously in this deck, it's basically send any monster from your hand to the graveyard to special summon them, but you know, still a nice little card. He's supportive, if you will, and whatnot. So he's kind of like a corner, except without the Pineco part of it. It does raise the question of how I'm going to use these exactly, but I'll get more into that later as we go in to the deck. Next is Copycat. If this card is summoned, target one face-up monster your opponent controls. This card's attack and defense become equal to that monster's original attack and defense. So that tells me that his current attack and defense become equal to his original attack and defense. And yeah, I mean, obviously, like it's kind of obvious why I've got this guy in here is because it's to, you know, because I'm not gonna have a very good powerhouse otherwise. So it's just it's one of those things where it's like let your opponent, you know, get a high power monster onto the field and then copy it onto Copycat. So you know, that's pretty much why they're there, if you will. Next we have Cosmic Compass. When this card is normal summoned, you can best summon a number of Compass tokens, machine type, Earth, level 1, 0 attack and defense, up to the number of monsters your opponent controls. So you'd obviously want to summon this when your opponent has 4 more cards, 4 more monsters in the field, because it did say up to, so if your opponent controls 5 monsters, you can summon this in the main monster zone, you can't summon it in the extra monster zone, and then therefore give you a maximum of 4 tokens. So that's a really nice effect. It's not a tuner, which is a little odd. You'd think it would be, but you know, I guess it is what it is. But yeah, that's and there's no restrictions on those tokens as well, so you can tribute them. You can, you know, for a monster or ritual or whatever, you can synchro them, fusion them. You can't exit them because I think that's a blanket can't do, but you know. Next up is Cyber Valley. You can activate one of these effects. First effect is, when this card is targeted from an attack, you can banish this card, draw 1 card, and then end the battle phase. So it's kind of like a reverse battle fader, if you will. Instead of losing your card in your hand and special summon itself, you've got to summon this guy and then banish it to get you an extra card. Second effect, you can target 1 face-up monster you control and this card, banish both those targets, and then draw 2 cards. And the third effect is you can target 1 card in your graveyard, banish both this card and 1 card from your hand, and place the target on top of your deck. On top of the deck. So that's a nice little setup card if you want to be able to like know what you're gonna draw. You know, I don't know what, I mean, I probably wouldn't use that for this deck, but it's a really nice card actually, especially for an Exodia deck when you've either to draw you more cards or if you've lost an Exodia piece and you need to get 1 back. So there you go. Next is Dotscaper. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon it. If this card is banished, you can special summon it. You can only use 1 Dotscaper effect per turn and only once that turn. You can only use 1 effect, each effect of Dotscaper once per duel. And he's otherwise a good defender. So, you know, he's not too bad of a card. And you can summon him with defense mode as well, I think. I have to look. Yeah, you can summon him in defense mode, so he's a nice defender monster as well. Next is 2 copies of Eater of Millions. Cannot be no summon set must be special from your hand by banishing 5 or more cards from your hand, field, and or extra deck face down, and cannot be special summoned by other ways. This card gets 100 attack and defense for each face down banished card. So any face up ones are going to be nothing basically for this guy. This face up card in the field cannot be tributed, not used as material for fusion single elixirs, but it can for links and rituals. That's the only restriction there. Once returned at the start of the damage step, if this card battles an opponent's monster, you can banish that opponent's monster face down. So obviously if you've got 3 copies of this guy, the extra deck limit is 15, so you can special summon all 3 just by banishing the extra deck. Which might be good for Monarchs actually a little bit. Then you can just like attack, and that's already 1500 attack and defense for all 3 of them, even though you special summoned all 3. And it is 5 or more, so even though I've only got 2 at the moment, I could banish 5 for one of them, and then 5 for the other one, 10 for the other one even. And by doing so, that gives enough 1500, because it's banish 5 or more cards from your hand, deck, or graveyard, or extra deck even. Hand, field, or extra deck, sorry, not deck. I'm sure everyone wants it to be deck, but I'm sure it's it would be too overpowered then. Alright, next up, you might be able to predict this one, is Effect Failure. During your opponent's main phase, quick effect, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, then target 1 effect monster your opponent controls and negate the effects of that face-up monster your opponent controls until the end of this turn. So the first says that face-up monster your opponent controls. I wonder what would happen then if it's an effect that can activate on either side of the field, or like a continuous effect that activates. And I wonder then if, so you negate it, and then what if they creature swap it to you? Does it still get negated? Because that kind of reads like it doesn't, to be honest. So, but you know, it's a nice effect. Obviously, it's a pretty popular card. I've gone over the story before about how I got that card instead of Wind Dragon of Ra when I really wanted it, and then someone else got Ra when they really wanted the Effect Failure. Next up is Key Mouse. When this card is destroyed in battle and sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 level 3 or lower beast type monster from your deck to your hand. So obviously you can add any beast monster from your deck to your hand, because this is all level 1s anyway. I don't even know if I have any level 1 beasts. I do, the next one's a beast. But yeah, Key Mouse, a pretty nice card. It's technically a war monster or something, a recruiter if you will. I don't know what the hand version would be called, but you know, a hand recruiter I guess you could say. Next up is a King Cabo, or whatever, however you pronounce it. This guy's a spirit monster, so he cannot be special summoned, and when it is normal summoned or flipped face up, you can target, oh hang on, I got it mixed up. Okay, so this guy cannot be special summoned, because he's a spirit monster. When this card is normal summoned or flipped face up, you can target 1 level 1 monster in your graveyard, special summon it, but banish it when this card leaves the field. So I think if you sacrifice it and it leaves the field because of that, you get to keep it not banished, if you will. Once returned during the end phase, if this card was normal summoned or flipped face up this turn, return it to the hand. So you know, nice card. It's good for synchro plays actually. Would have been good for Yusei actually in this deck. Speaking of Yusei, we have Mechcod Emperor Weasel, which is probably the best monster in this deck. I would have made this the boss monster because of its high attack and defense for level 1, but because it would have made it look like a Mechlord deck, I decided against it. I didn't really want to, you know, confuse it that way. So, you know, but yeah, this guy, his effect is cannot be normal summoned or set. Must be special summoned by its own effect and cannot be special summoned by other ways. When a face-up monster you control is destroyed by a card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon this card from your hand. Other monsters you control cannot declare an attack, like the Malefics. Once per turn, you can target one face-up synchro monster you control, or your opponent controls, equip that target to this card. This card gets attack equal to those equivalent monsters' combined attack. Once per turn during either player's turn, when an opponent's spell card is activated, you can negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. So, nice anti-synchro card, if you will. And that reminds me, I do want to make like well, I really want to make like decks, like a fusion deck, one that's heavily based on fusions, and another fusion deck, one that's heavily based on fusions, but this time it allows for synchros and nixies and stuff. Like the first one wouldn't allow for fusions, wouldn't allow for synchros and nixies and whatever. The second one would. So like it'd have Drag Quiets, whatever. And then I was thinking as well making an anti-fusion deck. You know, an anti-synchro deck, whatever, you know, cards that just focus on negating fusions or punching them for fusion, if you will. So that might be another deck series that I do soon. Well, I say soon, but I'll have to build them. Next up is Mortronic Magnum Bar. 1 attack precision. Once per turn, if you control it, 2 other face attack precision monsters and no additional monsters, which I assume you mean it has to be 2 monsters in a time mode, and you have to, and this monster and no other monsters, so it's only 3 monsters total. This card gains the combined attack of the other 2 monsters you control until the end phase. The other 2 monsters cannot attack the turn you activate its effect. And then 1 defense position, monsters you control cannot attack. So, you know, it's that second effect, well, it's both very nice in this kind of deck, because obviously you can combine attack stats together and whatnot. Obviously it wouldn't be too good with the Mechlord one, because the Mechlord would prevent him from attacking, and he would prevent the Mechlord from attacking. But otherwise you can use that as defense, so for a bit, so this is that. Another Mortronic monster in Mortronic Smart Farmer. This card has an additional effect before the attack and defense. Effects, cannot be normal summoned or set. Must be special summoned from your hand by banishing 1 Mortronic monster from your graveyard. And it's a level 1 tuner. Alright, so while in attack position, once per turn you can roll a 6-sided die, excavate that many cards from the top of your deck, add 1 excavated Mortronic card from your hand, also shuffle the rest back into the deck. And while in defense position, once per turn you can roll a 6-sided die, look at that many cards from the top of your deck, then place all of them on either the top or the bottom of the deck, but in any order. Jeez, I don't know why I'm having so much trouble today. Alright, next up we have Marmiting Captain. This is like a level 1 Marauding Captain, you know, it's like a Marauding Captain for a level 1 deck, perfect for this sort of thing. When this card's normal summoned, you can target 1 level 4 lower monster in your graveyard, special summon in defense position, but this has its effects negated. So it's kind of like a reverse Marauding Captain as well, because it targets in the graveyard rather than in your hand. And therefore, because I think it's a bit more powerful, it obviously negates the effect. So, you know, it's a really nice effect. Because obviously it helps revive monsters and whatnot. You know, it's a nice thing. You know, I might put it in one of the other decks, to be fair, because it might be better for synchro plays and whatnot. I might do that with a bunch of these cards, but at the same time I've got to be careful with all this, if you will. As in, like, I want to keep the restricted version, but also I want to make other decks and whatnot too, so. Next up we have Pinecono. If this card is sent to graveyard by the effect of a corner, you can special this card from your graveyard, from no graveyard. Obviously this guy is obviously the other guy for the Acorno monster earlier. The fact that it says you can special this card from the graveyard implies to me that you could, if you play exchange, to take your opponent's Pinecono, and you discard that for your Acorno's effect, obviously Pinecono will go to the opponent's graveyard, but, so would it still go to your field then, or would it go to the opponent's field? Or would it just not do it because the opponent didn't do it, if you will? You know what I mean? But this is an old text. This is a graveyard rather than GY, so I'm not exactly sure about that. I guess I'll have to look into rulings for that. We'll check that out somewhere. Next up is Read Butterfly. If your opponent controls a face-up synchro monster and you control no face-up synchro monsters, you can special this card from your hand. Now, obviously, in the restricted deck, because synchro monsters, like 99.999% of synchro monsters aren't going to be level 1. This guy is obviously, or there's going to be no synchro monsters in this deck. The only level 1 synchro monster I know of, his summoning requirement is 2 monsters whose level is 1 level apart. So like a level 4 and a level 5, you know. So obviously I can't do that because all these are level 1s. It's not like all these level 2s and 1s, in which case I'll be able to summon it. No, it's all of them level 1s. So, you know, I guess I could use Darklon, but you know, I'd rather not, you know, in this sort of deck. And you know, because like I said, this is a restricted version, but you know, it's a really nice card and also good for like the other versions as well, like something out more Xyzers or maybe even bringing out your own synchros. Next up, we have this Atelier monster. This card cannot be destroyed in battle. The attack of any monster that battles this card becomes 0 at the end of that battle phase. During your end phase, change this face-up defense position card on the field to face attack position. So obviously that sets up to be directly attacked by, if you will. But it's nice because it brings your opponent's monsters down to levels to attack of 0, which is good for a deck like this. I can't exactly swing over too many monsters. Might be good in my 0 attack deck as well, or 0 defense deck. Next up we have Scapegoat. Flip Tuner monster. Flip, you can special summon any number of black sheep tokens. Zombie type, dark, level 1, attack and defense 0. These could obviously be good for synchro plays, and for tribute plays actually, because they can be tributed with anything, so it's really nice. And, you know, I know they made Scapegoat tokens, like Scapegoat tokens for individual ones for all 4 of them. I wonder if they've made any Scapegoat tokens actually, I'll have to look into that. Alright, final monster. It is Swift Scarecrow. When an opponent's monster class is a direct attack, you can discard this card and negate the attack at the end of the battle phase. This is a quick effect. So basically, it's like Battle Fader, the only difference being that you discard this card rather than special summon it and then banish it. So you know, it's a nice little like extra, if you will. Essentially, it's like 3 more copies of Battle Fader without special summon, if you will. If you want to look at that. Or you can look at Battle Fader as 3 extra copies of Swift Scarecrow, but with a special summon instead of a discard. Alright, spells. First one is Fiend Sanctuary. Special summon 1 Metal Fiend token, Fiend type, dark, level 1, attack and defense 0. It cannot attack. Your opponent takes any battle damage you would have taken from battles involving it. During each of your standby phases, pay 1,000 life points or destroy this token. So, you know, it's a nice little war monster, basically, if you will. It's not too bad. So, you know, and it's something that your opponent can't swing over, basically. I don't even think they could skill drain it. Alright, next up we have Hippo Carnival, a quick play spell card. Special summon 3 Hippo tokens, Beast type, Earth, level 1, attack and defense 0. But they cannot be tributed. So you can't ritual with them and you can't tribute them for like a blue eyes or whatever. They can't be Kaigu'd either, so that's kind of a positive. You cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck while a Hippo token is in a monster zone. For the rest of this turn after this card resolves, monsters your opponent controls cannot target monsters for attacks except Hippo tokens. So, you know, I kind of add as war monsters that draw attacks in as well for a turn. Which, by the way, just to point out, if your opponent were to summon a Kaiju over one of your monsters in one of these restricted decks, that's fine, because that's on them, you know. it's them who's choosing to do it. Whereas if you did it, it's not supposed to be in there, if you will. So it's even if you summon it onto their side of the field, it's like it still feels kind of like cheating because it's in your deck, you know. So that's why I don't use them in these decks, because they're not really especially since it gives them kind of a big monster anyway. So you know. Alright, next up is 3 copies of 1 for 1. So 3 for 3 basically. Send 1 monster from your hand to the graveyard, special summon a level 1 monster from your hand or deck. So, or just special summon a monster from your hand or deck in this case, because they're all going to be level 1s. And yeah, it's a really nice effect. So, yeah, it's it gets you any level 1s to field really quick with special summon as well. So that's a really nice effect. Next up, we have Scapegoat again, except we don't. We have Scapegoat. 2 copies this time as well. If you activate this card, you cannot normal summon, flip summon, or special summon during this turn. And then the next effect, special summon 4 sheep tokens. So it reads a little bit weirdly, but you know, I think you get what it's trying to say. The sheep tokens are beast type, earth, level 1, attack and defense 0, in defense position to your side of the field. The sheep tokens can be used as tributes to a tribute summon or set, or tribute set. So you can't summon or set a monster over them, but by tributing them you have to, well, you just can't. You either have to tribute them for a special summon, or you have to tribute for them for a ritual summon, or for a synchro or fusion. You know, that those are allowed for them. Whereas Scapegoat is like really weird because you can use it for anything. Next up we have half a Scapegoat and Stray Lamb, or Stray Lambs, it's plural. So let's summon 2 lamb tokens, beast type earth, level 1, attack and defense 0, in defense position. You cannot summon other monsters to turn you activate its effect, but you can set. But you can tribute these tokens as well though, which is really weird because the other ones I think are actually... Oh no, those are sheep tokens, these are lamb tokens. That's the only difference. Well, I mean, not the only difference, but that's kind of weird how you can tribute lamb tokens but you can't tribute sheep tokens. You know? Oh well, it is what it is. Alright, last spell card of the deck is Wormbait. I don't even remember if I have any insect type monsters in this deck, but if I don't, then I'll put it in the side deck. If you control an insect type monster, special summon 2 worm tokens. Insect, earth, level 1, attack and defense 0. So it's basically just like the sheep tokens, except they're insect type. You cannot normal summon or special summon any level 3 or 4 monsters to turn you activate its effect, which means nothing in this deck because they're all level 1s. So yeah, it's all good. Alright, time for the trap cards. We have a major upset. Tribute 1 face up tap position at level 2 or lower monster you control. So basically one face up tap position monster you control. Return all face up level 7 or higher special monsters on the field, which obviously you're not going to get hit by that unless your opponent gave you a kaiju. But you know, it's really nice for returning all the powerful monsters to the hand. I might actually put this in another deck that I've got because it might be really nice. Okay. Next we have Desperate Tag. If a face-up attack position monster you control is destroyed by battle, during damage calculation, you can reduce the battle damage from this battle to 0 and special summon 1 level 4 or lower, or just any level monster, you know, any monster, warrior type monster from your hand at the end of the damage step. So I think you can do this infinitely as long as you got a warrior type monster in your hand. Well, level 4 lower warrior type monster in your hand, but obviously, you know, you need to be level 4 lower, but obviously it's level 1 deck. Next up is Gravity Bind. Level 4 and higher monsters cannot attack. Now this does affect you. Except it doesn't, because all your monsters level 1 anyway, so it doesn't actually affect you. So that's kind of cool, and also locks down your opponent as well, because they're likely going to be using level 4s and aboves. Next up, we have Pixie Ring. If you control 2 or more type machine monsters, your opponent cannot select your monsters with the lowest attack as an attack target. So, a nice little defender card. I've gone over this several times before though, so this might be like the second most popular card in my decks, behind Lv1. Next up is 2 copies of Powerful Rebirth. Activate this card by targeting 1 level 4 or lower monster in your graveyard, so any monster in your graveyard. Special summon that target. Increase its level by 1 and attack and defense by 100. When that monster is destroyed, destroy this card. So if this card is destroyed, you don't lose that monster, but you lose the boost, but you don't lose the monster. When that monster is tributed, or simply sent to the graveyard, you don't lose this card. So that's good for Uriah. But given the fact that it raises their level by 1, I might have to put this into a different deck, because again, I think this isn't like, it supports level 1 monsters, yeah, but it's not like it makes them questionably level 1 then. So I'm thinking maybe, yeah, I should probably take this card out. I could put one into like a different level 1 deck, like the questionably supportive and the Uriah deck, because like I said, it's good for Uriah, so it's not too bad. Next up, we have Spark Shield with Chain. It took me forever to realise this card is a Kunai with Chain card, or kind of like the same level as Kunai with Chain. It took me forever to realise it was called with Chain, like Kunai with Chain. I only noticed this the other day, basically. Target one face monster on the field. Equip this card to the target. It gains 500 attack. If the equipped monster attacks or is attacked while in defense position, it gains defense equal to its attack during damage calculation only. So that's kind of cool for super heavy samurai monsters, and it's also just nice for monsters in your Zero Attack and Defense deck. Zero Attack, Zero Defense, and Zero Attack and Defense. Well, not really Zero Attack and Defense, but Zero Attack or Defense decks. And it's good for this deck as well, because obviously this deck's going to be full of level 1, so obviously you're going to want something to boost them, So next up we have, and lastly actually, we have United Front. When a trap card is activated, while you control 2 or more face-up monsters at the same level, which should be all your monsters, negate the activation and destroy it. So the only requirement to negate your trap card in this case is just control the 2 monsters or more with the same level, which you should do, because all your monsters have 1 in stack anyway. So this has kind of been one of my favourite cards that I haven't really played too often, because I remember getting it when Yu-Gi-Oh! Sexual started, because obviously they were playing a bunch of monsters with the same level because I was on the Ixie start, and it's I haven't really played it too often, if at all, so it's kind of a pity that is. I kind of want to play it a bit more now. Not now, but I just kind of want to play it a bit more now in general. Alright, that's the deck then. That's the level 1 deck, and that's the last restriction deck, or last restricted restriction deck, I should say. I could go over my other decks, the unrestricted versions, or whatever else I decide to do. I mean, I've got to build all of them first, so to be fair, so it's more of a case of I've got to figure out how I'm going to build them, and then actually build them, and then there's also the case of I've got that Zero Attack and Defense deck, where it's full of monsters with just Zero Attack and Defense. So obviously I've got to build that up. I've got to do all the combinations there as well. I know who the boss monster is going to be for the ultimate restricted deck. For the ultimately restricted deck kind of thing. I know who's going to be the boss monster for that. But Then, like I said before, like I said earlier in the video, I've got to decide on what next. You know, what next to record. I've got one idea already, but I'm not exactly sure. Which, by the way, that one idea, it should be 4 decks. It's either 3 or 4 decks again. So, you know, I guess there's your hint. If you wanted to hint, you know, it's a group of 3 or 4. But there's also like, but I kind of want to still do like alternating deck profiles, because like I want to kind of keep things fresh a little bit, if you will. But at the same time, thinking about it, maybe I'll leave it up to a poll actually to decide on whether I should continue doing deck profiles as, you know, alternating, alternate like this, or do I do one group at a time? You know, like in this case, do I do, for example, let's take the Sacred Beast decks I've got, for example, which I haven't done those yet. I've done the Armitage decks, but not Sacred Beast decks. Like, would you want me to do all 3 Sacred Beasts in one go? You know, so like one Wednesday, then the following Wednesday, then the following Wednesday, or would you rather me do alternate between the Sacred Beast deck and this Mystery deck? Sacred Beast, Mystery deck, Sacred Beast, Mystery deck, you know, that kind of thing. If I do rotate like this, it will only be between 2 or 3 groups, because I don't want to, because obviously, like, I imagine there's going to be people who want to, like, they're interested in, say, in the Sacred Beast deck, for example, or maybe they're interested in, you know, the restricted decks, for example, and I don't want to have to make you wait too long for the next one. So obviously having alternated between 2 or 3 means, you know, that many weeks you have to wait until the next one comes out. So, you know, that's something I'm gonna have to go over. Like I said, I'll do a poll on it. So, you know, I'll either be on YouTube itself, which obviously you just check on my channel and I'm sure you'll find my community tab. You know, I'm pretty sure it's not that difficult, and or I might do them in my Twitter as well. On my, I mean, at the moment it's not public, but it might be public by the time this comes out tomorrow, which is in about 24 hours now. Wow. And so, you know, I might release that. Not release that. I'll link that in the description below so you can follow and keep up to date for video uploads and what else? And for also polls on there as well. You know, so, you know, if you want to follow that, it's private at the moment as I speak right now, but I might make it public by tomorrow, by the time this comes out. So, you know, if it's private, just, you can still follow it. I don't mind people following it. I will probably accept you. I say probably only because I know there's a few weird accounts out there, like, and I don't mean like people who I just have a bad opinion of. I just mean I just mean accounts that are, you know what I mean. You know, they don't look like real accounts, kind of thing. So, you know, but yeah, I'll probably accept you. You know, for this account anyway, because this is a new account of mine that I've made for specifically YouTube videos and whatnot. So my main account, I've made that private and kept it I've made it private and I'm going to keep it private for now. It's going to be my private Twitter. And then I've also Minkey's extra pictures, which I'll link that as well. That's public and that's always going to be public. My main account, that's always going to be private now, and my YouTube Twitter is currently private, but I'm going to make it public soon. So, so you can follow my Minkey's extra pictures Twitter. I don't post that much nowadays, but I'm going to try and post more soon. You can follow my private account if you want, but I can't guarantee that I'll let you follow me on there, because like I said, it's supposed to be my private one. And then you can follow my YouTube one as well if you want to, which is currently private, but will be public soon, and so I probably will accept you on there. So you know, so yeah, I don't think there's anything else for me to say other than, you know, like I said, I'm going to do polls soon. So yeah. Alright, so thank you for watching then, and I hope you have a minky day.